All right, so we have been super patient and we've waited for our starter to become a starter. In this case, this is a starter that's been going for 2 years and I've continued to feed it every week. This is one that we just started 2 weeks ago, but you have to be patient. It's all about time. If you don't have the time, you'll never make good sourdough. So when I get ready to do this, a lot of the recipes that you'll find online will tell you just take a couple teaspoons or tablespoons and mix them in with some water and get things going. No, why would we bother with that? Get serious about it. Take a giant scoop. So we're gonna take a half a cup of this. I'm gonna take mostly half of this starter. I'm gonna throw it into my mixer bowl. This is a good amount. We're serious. We want a good sourdough, right? Why mess around? So that's a good start. I'm gonna take the rest of this, I'm gonna add some flour to it and a little water. I'm gonna refeed it, get all those yeast cells eating up all the flour. Add a little water, I'll stir this up. I'll put this back in the fridge. This will be good for next week or even 2 weeks from now when I'm ready to make more bread. The normal recipe for making sourdough is you have roughly 2 cups of water for about 5 cups of flour. Usually you're going to use a little bit different grain bill for the flour. So this one is about a cup and a half of water, and I'm mixing with my yeast starter that I put in the bowl a little bit ago. I'm going to put it on my KitchenAid, lock it up, turn it on, and this will just stir for a little while. And that helps you get the water and the yeast mixed together so that they're ready to accept the flour, which is going to come in a little bit. So I'm going to let this run while I do my thing. So I have a combination of bread flour, traditional flour, and then I got a little bit of spelt and a little bit of semolina. So usually the ratio that I use is going to be 50-50 bread flour and white flour. Sometimes you can put in a little bit of wheat flour if you want. The spelt gives it a nice little stone ground feel, and the semolina is what you usually would find in pasta. It gives it a nice chew. So we're going to let this spin for a little bit, and then we'll start adding the flour and the most important part, which is the salt. So here's my salt. I'm not a good measurer. I know that a tablespoon of salt is about what'll fit in my hand. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna load a little bit of hot water in here. And the hot water is gonna start to break down and melt that salt. And that's gonna be my other half cup of water. So a half cup of boiling water, a little bit of salt, and we'll add this to the water right before we throw in the flour. There are a lot of folks that like to put this in after the fact. And I think you're getting a little complex at that point. So let's take it easy. We've been patient with our bread. We've been patient with our yeast. Chillax. Do it the easy way. Let's go. And look, it's all been totally dissolved. And now it's time to add some flour. So the flour that I have here is straight up bread flour. The good stuff. Gonna do 5 cups. That's 1 cup. Don't get all crazy with your measuring. Right? The bread doesn't know. So I got about 4 scoops. Some good bread flour. Then I'm gonna mix in a little fun. So this is our semolina flour. Semolina flour is what you use for pasta. It's 100% durum. I'm gonna do like a halfer, I don't know. Again, not the best measure. A little spelt. I love the spelt because it puts those cool little flecks right into your bread. Gives a little smell, a little pungentness. Come on, you're doing sourdough. You want it to be a little stinky anyway. So let's close this thing up, lock it down, turn it on, let this go for a few minutes. It's gonna do its thing. I'll check back in when it's mixed. You can see how all the flour and the water will start to work together into a nice dough ball. If you need to add a little bit more flour, a little bit more water, that's fine. Make sure it's nice and spongy, usable, and then you're about done after 2 minutes. So this one was a little sticky, so I added a little bit more flour. Now we're starting to see everything kind of pick off the side of the bowl, turn it into a nice dough ball. Let that go for a couple more minutes. If you let it go too long, it'll start to get a little doughy, so stop it when you're ready. Seems about now. So now we have our dough. Be generous with the flour. You want to get it ready. Roll it out on the table and start to fold. And we'll show you that next. All right, so here we have our dough. It's all mixed up. I'm about ready to roll it out onto the table. Don't be afraid to get your hands a little dirty. It's sticky, but that's why you got the flour on the table. Roll it around a little bit. Push it down with your fingers. So the key with sourdough bread, it's different than any other dough. You're not kneading it. You're not making a pie crust. What you want to do is be able to push it out and fold it over. And we're going to do this for a couple of hours. This takes a long time. So we're going to put that on a nice bowl, set it up, forget about it. We'll come back. So there's a couple ways to let your dough rise. You can just put it on the counter like this. This is dough that we just mixed up out of the KitchenAid. You can do it by hand, you can do it with a fork, you can do it with a spoon, but in the end you end up with a nice dough ball like this. So you can put a bunch of flour on it, you can leave it on the counter, you can put a bunch of flour on it, you can put it in a bowl. Sometimes you can use some spray. Throw this inside of a pan, and that'll just help from keeping it stick, right? A lot of sticking. You don't need a lot of sticking. Do you? No. So this is gonna rise up over the next hour and a half. Again, sourdough takes a long time. Don't be in a rush. If it's not rising up in 30 minutes, in 60 minutes, in 90 minutes, let it go. Eventually, the yeast are in there. They're gonna do their thing. It just means that you didn't build up enough yeast population to get your dough to rise. Let it go for a day sometimes. But you wanna make sure that this is gonna double, maybe triple in size. This is not gonna be ready till the dough is up to here. Don't rush it. All right, so last night we got our dough ready, put it into the mixer, mixed it up, folded it a couple times and let it rise. So this is our newest starter. That starter is only about 10 days old, and you can see how much the bread has risen. This one's a little bit more aggressive because it's an older starter. You got a higher yeast population in there, and it's doing its thing. So again, patience is the #1 key to making sourdough bread. Get something else going. Forget about it. Set it on the counter, come back to it. A lot of recipes will tell you to fold the bread every half hour. I think it's too much. Do it a couple times during the afternoon, a couple times during the morning, and that's usually enough. So the idea here is we want to knead this, but we don't want to push all of the air out of the dough. We want to let it rise slowly. So instead of a traditional knead, we fold. And there's a couple different ways to do this. Some people say just fold it in half. Do that 6 times, rotate it. I like to get the job done a little quicker, so I make a big flat surface, fold it over once, fold it over again, push it down, fold it over once, fold it over again, and it's pretty much done being folded. So you can see how I kind of wrap around the sides, pinch it on the bottom, make a nice round, smooth loaf. That smells good. It's too bad we don't have smell-o-vision, but you can hear the bubbles kind of popping as it goes through there. So we'll set that back in, and we'll let it rise. There's little bubbles. So that'll rise again for another hour, maybe longer, and then we'll come back to it. This other loaf, which is going a little slower, if it doesn't pick up, we may not bake it at the same time. We may let this go and do a 2-day rise. That'll give the yeast a little bit more opportunity to do their job. So again, just spreading it out. You can do it a couple ways. There I folded it in half. There I folded it in half again. Punch it, flatten it back out, roll it in half. The next thing you know, you're back to a ball. We'll put those back on the counter, go do something different, watch a movie, mow the lawn, jump in the pool, and we'll be good to go. All right, we've got a couple of sourdough loaves that have been sitting here and they've risen. So we've smashed them down, folded them over, smashed them down, folded them over, and they are ready to shape into bread loaves. You can do a round, you can do a loaf, you can do baguettes, you can do mini rounds. So we'll show you how to do that next.